Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second half of the Trahern Crews Show right here on www.blacktvs.com or Black Watch Television on your Roku channel. We got Jeremy English from the Frank Knight Show. His show is on every Tuesday, I believe, at 7 p.m. Or correct me if the time is wrong, but he's on every Tuesday on Black Watch Television. That's the Frank Knight Show. Say what's up to the people.
How y'all doing tonight? Very much appreciate being on Trahern's show tonight.
No doubt. We got so there's an issue going on here in St. Paul with I think they're gonna build this is a real quick piece. So it says Lower Town businesses owner sues St. Paul over homeless shelter, expansion at Red Savoy's. So 15 businesses in and around St. Paul's Lower Town neighborhood are suing the city of St. Paul and Listening House, a Dayton's Bluff Day Shelter, in order to block their plans to expand into the former Red Savoy's pizza location on East 7th Street. You want to expand a little bit on that? I think you got a little bit of knowledge on that situation.
Well, considering some of those local businesses that are around that area, and considering exactly what the situation was, Listening House, it's a nonprofit that basically looks out for homeless people. And when I'm talking about homeless people, I'm not talking about your average white person who, for example, was evicted 30 days ago, 60 days ago, and just got down on their luck, unfortunately, with, going on unemployment. I'm not talking about your average, everyday, simple situation. I'm talking about the more difficult situation. I checked in the Listening House. They deal with a lot of mental illness, and they deal with a lot of Black people. And some of those Black people have significant mental illness. So it's very hard to find them shelter. It's very hard to get them services. Some of them are stubborn with it because of their mental illness. Others, they've had to fight through the cracks just to get them services. So for those businesses, looking at the demographic of the people that, for example, who are affected, for those businesses to decide all of a sudden that it was needed to sue the city over that, it just is a little fishy for me. It does show me again how easy people can get on code, and how the dominant society is able to lock out certain resources for Black folks. Let's just call it what it is. They can lock out certain resources for Black folks at any point in time. So they can't say that they don't have the ability to do that business-wise.
Right. And then they say some stuff about, later in the article, it says businesses have pointed to negative experiences with Freedom House, a previous temporary satellite location for Listening House. But then at the same time, and it just making it seem like, white people don't do any, or, just some of the other people don't have some of the same people who are complaining have some of the same issues themselves. They just have a little more money. You want to expand on that?
Yeah, well, it kind of depends on the situation too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the sense where it's like, okay, yeah. I mean, I could get what you're saying. You know what I mean? In regards to some of those same people having those same situations. But again, I mean, when it comes down to the word nuisance. You know what I mean? Because again, that was one of the words that I heard in that lawsuit. Nuisance is a nuisance is a code term for black folks.
Yeah, come
You
on.
know what I mean? And too many times we've been disenfranchised just based off the word nuisance.
Right.
So when I look at how, and I got to look at how and why those businesses decided that they wanted to go about suing the city over this. Now, I'm not saying the city, I'm not here to stick up for the city of St. Paul in this situation. What I'm here to do with this is evaluate why those businesses decided to sue the city. You know what I mean, Trey? So just looking at that evaluation, when you have to be notified 45 days before a homeless shelter is built within, I want to say it was what was it, a 5 mile radius, 2 mile, it was somewhere around there, 5 to 2 mile radius. As a business owner, when you need to be notified 45 days early, and don't get me wrong, the city allocated the money a certain way. Maybe there was questions about that, but you're talking about a homeless shelter. So I just have questions in regards to why local businesses wouldn't see. I'm not saying there isn't situations that they're going to go through, but there also are benefits when you talk about a homeless shelter and you talk about resources that those people could use.
Right.
So yeah, it was just, it just seemed a little fishy to me.
Want to welcome Mickey Knox to the show. What's good with you, Mick? I don't know if we can hear you. But yeah, we just talking about this homeless situation, this homeless shelter they're building downtown St. Paul. Some of the businesses are suing, and we want to get your opinion on that if you could chime in. All right, we're gonna keep it pushing. We're gonna keep it pushing. Just let us know when you're ready to chime in. Just chime in and say something at any time. But yeah, so also this week, man, um, I think 3 people were killed in St. Paul on the east side last Sunday night. So there's been a whole bunch of gun violence right now in the Twin Cities. So I think there was 3 people killed in St. Paul. 2 were shot. They were outside. The other 3 were in the house. There was like 2 shootings. The last. Hey, what's good? What's good? There you go, Knox. So yeah, we had some shootings. There was 2 back-to-back. Each night, the last 2 nights of the state fair, there were some shootings. Then we know over North Minneapolis last week there was a lot of shootings. A 16-year-old boy was killed. 2 pregnant.
Hello.
2 pregnant pigs. What's good with you?
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. There we go. Loud and clear.
Okay. Old brother finally found out how to work this technology.
That's all right, man. We're gonna learn together, man. That's what each one teach one.
Right on. How y'all doing tonight?
Oh man, we doing good, man. Glad you could join us real quick for a little evening conversation, brotherhood conversation.
Yes, sir.
So before I jump into this gun violence situation, we was just talking about they're building a homeless shelter downtown St. Paul. Some of the business owners are pushing back. There's not a lot of black business owners downtown St. Paul too. I just want to add that in, and that's something that needs to change. Do you want to give us your thoughts on that before we move to this next subject?
As far as putting the shelter down there, or the lack of the African Americans, blacks,
all of the above.
I'm torn in both senses because, of course, we need it. But for me, I'm always looking past past the problem to the solution, and I don't even want us to have to deal with that anymore. I think that we've seen a lot of things in this government that shows that we are putting money in places where it ought not be, while we negate places where it should be. I don't know how much we've sent over to Ukraine by now. Like, I don't even know what the dollar amount is anymore. And I just can't imagine that. Of course, this is going to go into what you're talking about later. But as far as the homelessness, and then we break down the water crisis that we have in multiple cities across this country, and other issues just like that. So, yeah, for me, it's strong because I know we need it, and so we have to do that. But I also want to make sure that we are fighting to rectify the situation that is putting a lot of, especially African Americans, in this city.
Indeed. And kind of going into that, because I don't know, kind of the two situations are related, but there was two shootings at the last 2 nights of the state fair. 3 people were killed in St. Paul, two injured outside. Last week in St. Paul, there was last week in Minneapolis, a 16-year-old boy killed, 2 pregnant women shot. What are you guys' thoughts on this?
Okay, well, I can let Knox chime in on that, but I would love to see, and because we were kind of talking about this, recently. I would love to know what the demographics of the cultures are that were involved in some of these recent shootings. I know some of them have been foundational blacks, but I don't think we're all tied into all of this. I think there's some other cultures that are definitely involved in this recent gun violence. And again, man, this kind of ties itself into what I always say about Chicago. Because when people talk about the city of Chicago, that's kind of a code word for black people. And I seen recently that some of those shootings in Chicago, they had a lot to do with retired police officers being involved in that. I seen that recently, and I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised at all. I wasn't shocked by it. Usually what I kind of come to the conclusion is when I look at the lamestream, quote unquote, media, and I see a shooting that has happened, I always wonder if they have a beat on the suspect. Because usually if they do have a beat on who the suspect is, it's 9 times out of 10, it's a black person. But when they say that, no suspects have been charged or found in the case so far, they're still looking for suspects, that kind of lets me know that there's a lot more foul play going on, and it's probably not a black person.
Well, I mean, you want to touch on some real business right there, and that's something that we've known as old heads now. A lot of the young people don't have context to things, right? Like, I've been here 50 years, so I've been conscious at least 40 of them. You know what I'm saying? From 10 years old on. So we've seen things, we've seen the changes, and we understand exactly what we see when we see this crime and what's going on. And yes, from LA to Chicago, a lot of this reported crime is not from us. There's 2 situations going on. One, there's a lot of immigrant crime being blamed on black. It's referred to as black. When you have immigrants doing certain things, and also what Jeremy was just iterating to is that the police which we have a FBI report. Is that correct? It was the FBI or the CIA report that shows that there is white supremacists in the police departments nationwide. And this report that I'm talking about is over 10 years old now. Iterate to is that the police. Oh, did I mess something up there?
No, you good. Go ahead.
Okay. So that report that there is white supremacists in the police departments nationwide, not here, not there, not a couple places, nationwide. We all know about the gangs in LA, the LAPD, right? So when we talk about crime, why are we only talking about poor Black people? And we'll just even go to, let's just take race out of it. Poor and destitution is going to commit crime. That's just what that environment does. It creates it, it festers it. Not only out of the destitution, but out of the mental illness, right? Like, you know, they love to say that the Dylan Roos of the world were mental ill, but what about that poor child that didn't have a father and a mother who was on the narcotics, and he's been in and out of the system? He had no love, no real strength, no real grasp on any type of actual humanity from this world. And then when they get they get 20 and 23 and 25, and we wonder why these people are like they are. It's because, let's talk about our city. Our city steals money. That's what it does. St. Paul, Minneapolis. I'll give you a prime example. And Frank knows, Jeremy, he knows because we had this conversation all the time. And I'm telling you right now, I've been asking every Black person that I run across now, who do you know that got some My Brother's Keeper money? Right? That's a real question, because see, these dollars go out, but the dollars never find us. The dollars never find these people that need these dollars, right? And then so when they're left out there and they end up committing, crimes or whatever it is that they do, we forget that part. Or at least we don't, but they do. They have no humanity for that part. They have humanity for a white boy who goes into a church and kills, old folks, or into a grocery store and kills old folks and people. They have compassion for that. But for the child who was just nobody his whole life and everything, and like I said, with the mental illness, there's no compassion from this country for that. So, when it comes to the violence, another thing I want to bring up about Chicago is, how many states is there, Trey? How many states do we have? 52. Okay. How many cities in all of them states? I ain't even gonna make you give me that number for real. For Black people's problems, they can only pick one state, and somehow Black people are supposed to feel bad because in one spot in the country, there's a lot of so-called Black violence.
Come on.
Not all across the country, like the Catholic priest rapes were, but Chicago. So understand that when they can use one city to define every Black person in all 52 states, that is a sign of Nazism. That is when you are labeling a group of people and placing them in a certain position thought-wise across the nation, which makes it so much easier for them to victimize us, right? Because if you look at everything that comes with Black people, it's all negative, right? Yeah. Homophobia, right? I want you to understand that Black people never had asylums. Black people never put gay people in asylums and gave them electroshock therapy or lobotomies. White people did, but somehow Black people are the face of homophobia. Yeah, exactly. Everything you can think of, they're gonna say it's us, even though it's literally never is. So yeah, I'll land with that right there, and let you go ahead and chime in.
Man, you said a lot, bro. And I just want to follow up on some of the things you said when you talked about destitution. I think that when you get put in a situation that makes you destitute or causes homelessness, that's what actually causes the mental illness. We say mind make the body, body make the mind crazy. So when the body's not getting what it needs, it's not getting its nourishment, it's not getting no shelter, it's not getting no food, it's going to cause the mind to kind of go crazy and react a certain way. And I think we see some of that with some of our people. I'm not everybody who has mental illness is homeless, but I think that being without shelter or without the resources you need in this society can cause mental illness. And then a big thing you just hit on, and I'd like to hear from Jeremy about it too. When that report that you said that had white supremacists in law enforcement, 500. They says there was a lawmaker here in Minnesota who they said was part of the Oath Keepers, and I don't know if he was at the Capitol in June or during January 6th. And then they also said there's 500 Oath Keepers here in the state of Minnesota. So when we talk about white supremacists being involved in law enforcement, then another big part of that report was it said there were 90 generals, U.S. generals, who were part of storming the Capitol on January 6th. You know, so then they call, so like you're saying, when they talk to us about crime, they talk to us about crime. The white supremacists are losing all moral authority to point the finger at the black community. And we know they were going to try to play that during this election from both sides, Democrat or Republican. But their own behavior is taking that issue off the table. Y'all want to chime in on that too?
I can for a second. My man Knox is killing it tonight, though. I just want to say, man, he's killing it. He on point tonight. When you talk about, okay, so for example, and I can break it down like this. Okay, so when it comes down to leadership and power and resources, because see, let's call it what it is. The police, as far as the program and the department itself, it is a resource for white society. It's a major resource for white society. And the reason why I say white society, and I could say dominant society, either which word, it's a resource for them because it's a way of having a safety mechanism away from Black society. And I'm talking about all Black society. That means the police don't discriminate when it comes to Black people. And we can probably, that's a whole nother conversation, because you got some Black people out here who don't understand that the police don't discriminate when it comes to Black people. But the bottom line is they don't. When it comes to Black people, they don't discriminate. And the reason why I bring it up in that way is because when you take a look at how these groups are shaped and how you don't see any groups of Black officers calling this stuff out. You don't see any groups of Black officers who are willing to even speak out about this kind of stuff that's going on. And what you do is you find yourself completely understanding that the system itself, due to the fact that it does have white suprematic ties, the system itself is completely eroded. And I'm talking about just on a police level. We still haven't got to, for example, on a county district level. So we haven't talked about judges. We haven't talked about prosecutors. We haven't talked about defense attorneys. because they're all on cold. And we just, I mean, just in regards to the, law enforcement, baby. Yes, we're not shocked, since we realized that Rodney King could be beaten by 4 officers and turn around and ask everybody to get along after he knew that there was a major uprising that Black people went through. It just shows you how eroded the law enforcement system and program is and how it needs to be fixed.
I always go back to this because it wasn't the police. This wasn't the police. And I have to slow walk this so you can understand exactly how serious this is and how serious it was for me at the time. Trayvon Martin was a Black child who was walking home from the store, and then an unidentified white Hispanic male, started following him, which made him nervous. And we know that because we've all heard the stories and the tapes and the video calls that he started to try to get away. The police told the Hispanic white male to leave the child alone. A child being followed by an adult. Again, let's say that. The police said to leave the child alone. He says, fuck what the police say, and excuse my language, but it's very serious because that's what he said. He chases this Black child through backyards. So this Black child now has a man who's following him. He thinks that's following him. Then now he knows for sure it's following him, and now is chasing him. And the United States government said that Black child deserved to die because he turned around to defend himself from a grown man who stalked him through backyards at night. And this government said that that Black child should die. And that's what their police, that's not what their police should do, but that's what their citizens have the right to do. Not the police, the citizens. And so that is an incident that strikes my heart so hard because of how real that is. Because if we turn that situation around anywhere else, who does not defend themselves from somebody stalking and chasing them through a neighborhood at night? But the US government said that Black child couldn't do it. And then you wonder about the mental illness in this country, the mixed signals that are sent in this country. I'm going to land it right there because I even have to breathe, because every time I really say that story the way that it is, it saddens me that this country is not as angry as I am over that situation and really took from that situation what it really was.
I think you're muted, Trey.
Yeah, it's really serious. Shout out to Mickey Frost. We're gonna try to get him on the show next week. He just liked the show. Shout out to Mick. We seen you at the Jazz Fest yesterday. He's running for state representative, so we're gonna bring him in and talk to him and even maybe get his opponent in and see where they at on these issues. But big shout out to Mickey Frost. We wishing you, a successful campaign on what you're doing. Just Jackson water crisis. I know y'all been seeing it in the news, and we're talking about, and it's kind of on the line of what we're talking about here. So it says now, this just came out today, and that's why we got to keep the pressure on. We had released a statement about it earlier this week. And so even if you look at Biden's, the Biden administration said it had put out we're going to take a listen to this clip and we'll build.
System failure left 150,000 people with dry faucets. But the city still remains under a boil water advisory for the time being. Jackson's mayor says just because the water is running doesn't mean they are out of the woods yet. Here's what he told John Dickerson on CBS News Prime Time.
After water pressure is restored and people can consume the water, people are in a are lured in a place of complacency without a major overhaul, without a major capital improvement. It's not a matter of if these systems will fail again, but when they will fail again.
Alex Eaton joins us now.
Can I get you guys' thoughts on what you just heard? And I have a couple more questions or statements.
Yeah, for sure. And I've already listened kind of to, I've kind of kept tabs on that situation, my brother. Shout out to Mick too. Yeah, definitely. We got to get him on and holler at him. Man, I literally seen a video of a faucet running down in Jackson, Mississippi yesterday. I watched a video of a faucet being ran by a Black person at their house. And as that faucet was running, I'm looking at the water. The water was completely brown. And I'm not talking about like light brown, or everybody knows what the color brown looks like. I didn't say it was black. I said it was definitely brown. Brown. So again, when you talk about this environmental racism, let's break this down. Katrina was in New Orleans. New Orleans is predominantly a Black city. Flint, Michigan had their water diverted from the city to another city on purpose by the city of Detroit. And that is predominantly a Black city. You get to Jacksonville, Mississippi, a predominantly Black city. Again, for some reason, after an environmental situation, the state itself can't get right all of a sudden and provide the city capital with clean, efficient running water. Why? Maybe because 80% of the city capital is Black. And time again, we've seen this pattern go on. In this nation's history, we've had Black cities and towns flooded, underwater, and we can't lose fact of that just because this is the next new one that has occurred. We have to take into account that this is a system that is being put in place where we are being gentrified in certain ways, and we have to wake up to that fact. Yes, we were gentrified back in the 60s when it comes down to new wave construction. That means, oh, well, we got to be innovative and put these highways right through the Black neighborhoods. Prior to that, it was, let's just burn down and destroy and murder some of these Black towns. Prior to that, it was, well, let's flood some of these Black towns. So we're seeing this environmental racism go on in real time. And it's just incumbent on us to get on code and realize that we have no friends but ourselves.
Not, you want to chime in on the water crisis? Well, I just wanted to add that tax base. That tax base. They said start leaving. There was some white flight in the '70s, and some people are saying that affected Jackson, Mississippi's tax base. But if you look at the demographic, it is black, but they're also educated blacks too. But we know that school loan situation also impacts people too. So it's. But another thing I want to add. There was like $400 million from federal funds that came down to Jackson, Mississippi for them to fix their water infrastructure, but they invested the money into the rural area. So some people saying that's environmental racism, and I can agree with that. Definitely. I think is definitely an issue of environmental racism, but we do have, Jackson, Mississippi has the mayor's black and there's 5 city council members. So when you're in a racist state, what does black leadership have a certain responsibility to secure resources for the people who elected them in office?
Yes. And a good example of that would be how some of those black farmers got left out that bill when it comes down to that agriculture. Remember, I want to say Biden had authorized a certain allocation of dollars directly to those black farmers, and then all of a sudden it was snatched away. And I know at the time, they had some black politicians who were advocating on their behalf and out there lobbying on their behalf to get that money. And all of a sudden, as soon as the president decided to turn coat, so did some of those politicians. You haven't heard any politicians, especially black ones, discuss anything about how those black farmers lost their money. So it just shows you, even down in Jackson, Mississippi, where, you've got a mayor that's black, and you got a whole city that's black, and you've got city council members that are black. You can just see how systematically we need people who not only are going to speak to what the grassroots concerns are, but we don't need people who are put in place literally as puppets just to circumvent the situation and ease what I would call the systematic gentrification of black people. Because you do have, and I don't want to put names out there because I don't, when it comes down to talking about black people in power, I don't want to put any, I don't like to put any onus on that because they really don't have any power. They're just part of the power structure. They're a tool being used. So I just don't like to put any names on anything, but it just really goes to show you that when you get the right people on code, the grassroots can start an agenda. At the same time, you can have a system where black people are in charge, but they are in charge for a reason, and that is to disenfranchise us.
Not, you still with us?
I want to say he is. He just had to take a quick second break.
Okay. And then we're going to check this out real quick. So, a black pastor who was arrested in May after a neighbor reported a suspicious person in a yard watering flowers said he is considering filing a racial discrimination lawsuit against his local police department. After returning from his church's Sunday service, Pastor Michael Jennings of Childersburg, Alabama, said he was doing a neighborly deed, watering his out-of-town neighbor's flowers on May 22nd, 2022, at their request, when a woman down the street called police to report a suspicious person in the car. The neighbor who called 911 said she did not recognize Jennings at first, according to body camera footage released this week. When responding to the call, police asked Jennings for an ID, the video depicts. After he refused, he wasn't committing a crime, police arrested and charged Jennings for obstruction of governmental operations. In the body camera footage, Jennings, who is black, accuses the officers of racially profiling him, which they deny in the video. Jennings told ABC News he was confused and agitated, but feared resisting arrest would have life-threatening consequences. And I wonder why he thought that. He said, "I was trying to cooperate even though I didn't understand what was going on," he told ABC News. "I was angry, but I knew to comply." Phyllis Jennings, the pastor's wife, ran from their home to the scene after her husband was arrested, bringing his wallet and identification. "I was so horrified, I thought for sure he had been shot. God forbid, dead," she told ABC News. Watering flowers constitutes this. So there's some body camera footage of the issue, but just kind of like we were saying earlier, you can be a pastor. You could be Bill Gates. He was breaking into his own house and was put in handcuffs. And he's a professor, world renowned. You guys want to chime in on this?
Yeah, I do, because I had a conversation with somebody about this a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about how, because they got these new words coming out. One of them is called class reduction. You've never heard of class reduction? You hit that mute. Yeah, class reduction is a real word that's going around right now. And the reason why I bring that up is because when you take a look at how the structure of race is tied into the system, people always act like it's a class thing. You know what I mean? People always say, "Oh, well, it's a class situation, you got these poor white people who are, who get charged and get accused of some of the same things that poor black people get charged." And I always go with this kind of scenario where no matter how poor or disenfranchised the white person is, they still have $1 million worth of whiteness they could cash in at any point in time. And that's based off the privilege and opportunity when it comes down to taking advantage of systematic resources they have. They have the ability to take advantage of systematic resources in ways that some of the most lavish and wealthiest, and I use the term wealthy, I didn't say rich, I said wealthy. Some of the most wealthiest black people do not have the advantage of taking advantage of systematic resources, basic systematic resources, like strong defense attorneys. I would say in a few cases, to name one, R. Kelly was charged with RICO law crimes where I don't think that had anything to do with the case that he was dealing with. I'm not saying R. Kelly shouldn't have been charged with something and something significant, but when you start adding RICO charges onto this brother's case, it's like, man, something's going on. And I see people like Kyle Rittenhouse, who doesn't have the same amount of money that R. Kelly has, completely get off with immunity after just blatantly killing two people on the streets. So when I hear about this pastor and how, quote unquote, let's call it what it is, my brother, a regular poor Alabama person can just all of a sudden call up the cops and say, oh, we got this black person watering this yard. And don't get me wrong, yeah, you do. But let's take a look at the situation of it. He's a pastor who represents his community, who represents his congregation, who was asked by the owner of that house to provide that duty. Yet and still, the poorest the poorest white person in that community can call the cops on that prestigious black person and get them arrested. So nobody can tell me anything on this planet on why it's incumbent on black people in America, especially the foundation, but only the foundational ones have earned reparations, because reparations is everything that has to do with what you're saying in this story. Because had the situation be that pastor was economically safe, that means economically safe from the cops being called on him and him being harassed by law enforcement. If he was economically safe from that, then this would be another conversation. And reparations is the only thing that's going to keep him economically safe from being subject to those kind of incidents and those situations, based off of how the system is systematically advantaged toward the dominant society because of the resources that they get and the benefits that they receive. And like I said, the most wealthiest black person in America can't buy that. Let me land right there, baby. And I think Knox is back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Pardon me, brother Trey. You know them babies call when them babies call.
Gotta do it. Gotta do it.
Yes, sir. So just catch me up real quick. I came in on the reparations, and
so we was talking about this brother right here, man. He's a black pastor, and he was arrested for watering some flowers. It says in the Bible.
I see that. Yes.
Okay, you know about that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what's your thoughts on that right there?
That's my whole thing to black people. Like, I don't understand what people really be thinking in their mind. I don't think they really understand that we are at war. Like, we are prisoners of war. America is committing a genocide right now. They need to be brought up on human rights violations right now. The things that they are doing are insane, and literally the same thing that they went into Nazi Germany to stop happening to another group of people. And imagine that when they went to stop doing that to another group of people, they were still doing it to us over here. So while they stopped Hitler, they were hanging blacks. This is the country that we live in. And this is why the pastor got arrested right now. And so when people think that, just because they get a little money and they get into the suburbs or they get into these other areas, you just got it a little better. You're out of the hot zone, the red zone, but then are you really? Because when you become the one black face in all of white land, now you stick out like a sore thumb.
Come on.
You dig?
Yes, sir.
It's insane that, I look at it like this. I would never I would never want to be a success in America. And I know that sounds stupid, but Metaphorically, what I mean is, what am I striving for? Like, I hear people talking about building legacies. How can you build a legacy in a goddamn place that doesn't allow you to control your legacy? You can't even control hip hop. You cannot control jazz. You cannot control rock and roll. Everything is theirs. Everything is stolen. Michael Jackson is a pedophile, according to them. Whitney Houston's a crackhead. Every legacy, every person. Tiger Woods, the whitest of the white black man, broke down. Bill Cosby broke down. You can't have a legacy in a land that you can't sustain your legacy. You see? So we are at a point of no return, really. Because of social media, like, Jeremy talked earlier about Rodney King, and that was really the first. Now, just imagine, and really, Trey, you should be old enough, and Jeremy, you should be old enough to understand what a snuff film was, right? You know that term, snuff film? Do you know that term?
No. It sounds familiar, though.
Okay, so a snuff film was a film about was a murder on film, and so like back in the 70s and 60s and shit like that, they would say a serial killer would murder somebody, and then that tape would go around the underground. That would be you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's even a movie back in the day about it. I wish I could think of the name right now, but.
Ahmaud Arbery was like that.
How many snuff films have we seen? And I'm telling you this because back then that was illegal. It was illegal to have a snuff film. But now they play snuff films of black people on 24-hour rotation now.
Wow.
24-hour rotation in broad daylight. This is a land that's literally based on the enslavement of black people. And the Asians got a hate crime bill before that group of people. So what does that say about the country that we are living in? That they know what they're doing to us, Trey. And again, when I left, I think I talked about the human rights violations. The 94 crime bill is a crime against humanity that was literally against black people. We have people on film talking about they were going to create a war on drugs to go after black people and hippies. This is, in a court of law, America would be thrown under the jail. Right. There's too much evidence on them now. You understand? So the point that they have us now with the invention of all of this technology, and to understand, and I'm not going to go real deep into this, but you'll understand what I mean. When we start talking about there's about to be non-human officers, right? Non-human officers. Understand that is coming in the very near future. They already have robot dogs. They got all kind of little gadgets and that they are gearing towards. And you know that law enforcement will always get this equipment first. If we don't get protections for Black Americans right now, today, we don't have 10 years left. We don't have 20 years left because things have progressed too far. When we talk about Chicago, when you talk about the murders that you talked about earlier, this is our youth. This is a youth that is gone. This is a youth that has no bearing. Let's keep it all the way 100. They have no bearing on anything moral. And why would they? Because there's nothing in America moral anymore. Nothing. At least when I was growing up, they pretended. They pretended. Right? Like Daddy knew if he wanted to shake that, he did what he did out there, right? Grown men did what they did out there. Even hookers were shame enough to understand that they kept themselves, like when you go back to The Color Purple, right? When old girl came to church, she came to church to testify, didn't she?
Yes.
And she knew because there's a separation between the secular and everything else. And America is delving into a path of just straight degeneracy. And in my lifetime, I'll land right this and let y'all come in because this is so amazing to me, especially when you live through it. This is what I'm saying. Context is a beautiful thing. So I remember Florida Evans on TV saying, damn, damn, damn. And that was a big thing. That was 3 curse words. 3 curse words back to back in seconds on television. That was unheard of at that time. That was crazy at that time. Am I wrong? That was water cooler talk at the time for them. Fast forward to this day and age, and you can see a male-on-male booty-eating scene on Channel 5 television. There's nothing moral in this country anymore. There's no kids bop. Our children go literally from Barbie and the Backyardigans to Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion with wet ass. You know what it is. There's no in between. There's no new additions anymore. There is nothing for our children. They go straight from newborns to toddlers to grown-ass adults in the activities and things that they're given access to. And now, even earlier, they're being compromised in their sexuality with the LGBT movement and moving into our schools. And that's going to bring us into another episode later on that I really want to go into, which is our educational system and what should be done about that today. But we won't go there. I'll land right there.
Hit that mute, Trey.
Thank you, brothers, for coming on tonight, man. We at the top of the hour. Lively conversation. We're going to do it again next week. We're going to review the week events. Thank you guys for coming on and being part of the Trahern Crews Show. Jeremy, if you could tell us when, where, how people can see your show, how they can get in contact with you. Mick, if you want people to get in contact with you, let us know how to do that.
Well, yeah, man, definitely on Black Watch TV. Make sure y'all get the app, Black Watch TV. I've got a live on air show on Tuesdays at 8:30. That's Tuesday nights. We get it cracking at 8:30, with the Frank Knight show. So make sure y'all tune into that. You can also check me out on Facebook at Frank Wees /Facebook. Or Instagram at Frank Wees Instagram /Frank Wees. So for sure, much love. Good looking out, Trey, and always down to get the conversation moving.
No doubt.
Yes, sir. Mad love, man. I really appreciate you getting in contact with me and letting me get in and touch base with you and talk a little mess tonight. I'm a little unruly, so I hope I did all right with you.
You did great, man. It's always an honor to have you on.
Jeremy, you my man, 100 grand. If you don't get no bigger, you mine. You know what that is. And y'all stay tuned. I'm working on something right now. I'll let y'all know the next time I come through with Trey, but we working on that programming right now, man. It's going to come back and hit you hard. We coming hard hitting. We not pulling no punches over here. I really think that what our people need is immediate action. We don't have time to be looking into the future with the 10 and 20 and the 30-year plans. We need to get to work right now.
No doubt. Thank y'all for coming on the show tonight. Really appreciate y'all. We're going to regroup tomorrow. And I'd like to thank you all for tuning in to another edition of the Trahern Crews Show. Don't forget, this show will be rebroadcasted on www.blacktvs.com or Black Watch Television on your Roku channel. Have a prosperous and successful week. All right? Peace. Appreciate you, sir.